Welcome back. It's good to see you again. I understand it's been quite some time since you've heard from me, and I do apologize for my absence, truly. The wait has been agonizing for both of us, but during my absence, I was able to conclude the Warpwalker book series. Not only was there complications with being able to continue the video series, but I felt I should finish the books first before I told them. Now with the saga and the books finished, I can focus on creating the videos to do just that. Now, last time we spoke, we left off on chapter 5. Let's not delay it any further. Chapter 5. Within the strategium aboard the Macragga's Honor, Lord Commander Roboute Guilliman stood in contemplative silence. His gaze fixed upon the hololithic display before him. Reports string endlessly across its surface. Coordinates, casualty figures, new tiered movement patterns. The one file had been isolated, marked with the highest inquisitorial seal, and an attached codex symbol of the Ultramarines. The designation read, Eugraxon Prime. The report unfolded in measured cadence, witness accounts, bid captures, psychic readings. Guilliman read in silence until his eyes reached the key entry.
Subject, Praxis. Gene Seed Origin, 12th Legion, World Eaters. Status, Purified. Object recovered, relic of unknown form, Golden Feather. Warp resonance consistent with Emperor-class signature. Outcome, Tyranid fleet annihilated, synaptic collapse achieved. Subject detained by Inquisitor Varen under Ultramarine supervision.
For a long moment, Guilliman said nothing. His expression did not change, but the air within the chamber seemed to tighten. Captain Althane's attached report played next. His voice steady, but faintly colored by awe.
My lord, the man who calls himself Praxis bears no mark of corruption. His strength is beyond explanation, yet his restraint was evident even in fury. The feather, it's sane when near him. I know not how else to describe it. It was as if the Emperor himself looked through it.
Guilliman's eyes narrowed slightly as the hollow image of the relic appeared, the feather glimmering with radiant gold, every filament alive with energy. For an instant, faint readings of psychic pressure distorted the projection, revealing a resonance so pure that even the ship's Gellerfield seemed to respond. He turned slightly as his adjutant approached, an archivist of the Logos Historica Verita.
A fabrication, my lord.
No. The readings are too refined, too deliberate. Nothing the Mechanicus could replicate. And the bearer.
He paused. The words World Eater lingered bitterly on his tongue, echoes of a brotherhood long turned to madness.
Son of Angron, cleansed of the Butcher's shadow. Impossible.
The archivist hesitated, uncertain whether to speak further. Guilliman's gaze, however, softened, not with sentiment, but with the distant gravity of recognition.
Father's touch. Faint, but undeniable. There is purpose in this. The Emperor's will does not manifest by chance.
Shall I have the Inquisition continue their study, my lord?
No. Bring him to me.
But my lord, a World Eater.
A cleansed one, if the reports are true. And if he is not, then I will see it with my own eyes.
He reached forward, deactivating the display, the projection of the feather, dissolving into motes of gold.
Send word to Inquisitor Varen. Tell him I will assume custody of the prisoner personally. And to Captain Althanes, he will prepare the transition to Ultramar. I will speak to this Praxis.
He lingered for a moment, in silence that followed, looking out the viewport toward the distant glare of a dying sun.
A World Eater who fights for mankind, and a relic that bears my father's echo. Perhaps even the impossible still serves his plan.
hold of the Obsidian Oath was silent, save for the low hum of plasma conduits and the soft ritual drone of its machine spirits. Shadows clung to the iron black walls like judgment itself, their stillness broken only by the rhythmic pulse of lumen strips. Within its reinforced chamber stood Praxis, unbound, yet watched by no fewer than 6 stormtroopers and 2 cyborgs. His stillness was unsettling. He neither resisted nor spoke, standing in quiet contemplation as the Emperor's sigil burned faintly upon the scarf around his neck. Inquisitor Varen had spent the better part of a Terran day poring through every scrap of data gathered from Eugraxin Prime. The results were maddening. World Eater gene seed, no corruption, no trace of the Butcher's nails, and the relic, an impossible feather that defied categorization by even Mechanicus augurs, had vanished from containment, only to return to the fabric of Praxis' scarf as though it had chosen to. Baron's analysis was interrupted by the metallic tread of ceramide boots. Captain Althanes of the Ultramarines entered, helm beneath his arm, his bearing precise, yet dignified.
Inquisitor Varen, a transmission has arrived through direct astropathic link. It bears the seal of the Lord Commander himself.
Baron looked up from his data slate, expression tightening.
From Lord Guilliman.
Confirmed and verified. The seal's authenticity is beyond dispute.
I see. Play it.
The Vox relay hummed, the projection of a golden aquila shimmering above the console. After a brief verification sequence, the message unfolded, clear, resonant, and absolute.
By command of Raboot Guilliman, Primarch of the Ultramarines, Lord Commander of the Imperium, and Regent of Terra. Subject Praxis, presently detained aboard the inquisitorial vessel Obsidian Oath, is to be transferred immediately into my personal custody. The bearer of the Golden Relic shall arrive upon Ultramar unaltered and unharmed. Any termination, interrogation through psychic means, or genetic modification shall be considered direct obstruction of Imperial decree. His arrival is to be overseen by Captain Althanes.
When the message ended, a silence heavier than gunmetal filled the chamber.
It seems that your miracles reach far, World Eater.
Praxis raised his head, calm and unprovoked.
Miracles are not mine to claim, Inquisitor. Perhaps I am merely their vessel. Even I cannot say for sure.
You wear your faith boldly for one born in blood.
Faith. Faith was what held me in chains. And what I now must prove, I no longer need.
Captain Althanes glanced between them before breaking the tension.
Orders are clear. Preparations for transition to Ultramar begin immediately.
As the chamber sealed and the ship's klaxon signaled imminent warp transition, the Obsidian Oath's machine spirits wailed their solemn hymns. The vessel adjusted course toward Ultramar, toward the judgment of a Primarch and the Emperor's own echo, bound now within a golden feather that glimmered faintly in the folds of a soldier's scarf. For the first time in 10,000 years, the son of Angron was being summoned by the son of the Emperor. The great hall of the fortress of Hera was silent, save for the whisper of servo-quills etching data into golden parchment. The vaulted chamber, lined with the statues of the Emperor's sons, bathed in the pale light of a distant sun. At the hall's center stood Raboot Guilliman, his form illuminated by the light of hololithic projectors displaying the full report of the Obsidian Oath. His expression carved from centuries of discipline betrayed nothing, yet the flicker of his eyes revealed deep calculation.
A world eater, without the nails, purged of corruption and bearing a relic radiating the Emperor's own essence.
The words came from Tigerius, the chief librarian of the Ultramarines, standing beside his lord with quiet reverence. His psychic senses had already brushed against the faint echoes of the report, echoes that had hummed with something far beyond mortal comprehension. Guilliman's gaze lingered on the image of the golden feather. It shimmered faintly within the projection, radiating the same spectral frequency as the Emperor's throne world. It was impossible. Should have been impossible.
And the Inquisition confirmed its purity.
Inquisitor Varen verified the readings thrice. The relic resisted containment. It returned to the subject praxis of its own will.
Will. That implies sentience. Perhaps even intent.
Perhaps. Or purpose. The warp itself bends in strange ways when touched by divinity.
Divinity. I have seen gods, librarian. I have fought their servants. There is no divinity in the warp. Only corruption lies in the ruins of what once was.
And what would you call this, my lord? A weapon of the warp that heals? A son of Angron who saves?
For a long moment, Gilliman said nothing. The feather's holographic light shimmered across his armor, the faint glow reflecting off the laurels upon his chestplate.
I would call it an anomaly.
He turned toward the massive viewport overlooking the crags, Capital Sprawl, a living monument to human endurance in order.
If this praxis is truly reborn, if he has defied the flaws that destroyed his legion, then he represents something beyond anomaly. He represents contradiction.
Perhaps contradiction is what humanity now requires.
Faith was never our foundation, Tigurius. It was our fallback. Yet now I cannot help but wonder if Father's hand moves again.
The Primarch turned back to the holographic display.
Prepare the chamber of sanctified containment. I will meet this praxis myself. If he is genuine, I will see it in his eyes. If he is deceived or corrupted, I will end him myself.
As you command, my lord. Shall I prepare for psychic screening as well?
No, not yet. If this feather truly bears Father's resonance, then even your mind could be burned by its touch. We proceed with caution.
The librarian nodded, leaving the chamber in silence.
Father, I must know. What have you sent me?
The void above Macragge shimmered with the arrival of the inquisitorial cruiser Obsidian Oath, its blackened hull gleaming with scripture and mooring sigils. Beneath the ship's prow, the mark of the Inquisition burned faintly in crimson light, a presence few worlds welcomed without unease. Even within the heart of Ultramar, such a visitation commanded attention. In the fortress spires of Hera, alarms of protocol echoed. Stratagems were updated, security layers adjusted, and astropathic clearance granted under Gilliman's direct authority. Few could recall when the Primarch had last issued such an expedited summon. Within the Strategium, Rabuk Gilliman stood before the hololith depicted the Obsidian Oath's docking trajectory. His expression was that of a commander straining against restraint, focused, unblinking, in the faintest edge of impatience.
They are hours behind their last relay mark.
Tigurius, standing beside him, inclined his head.
Inquisitor Varen is not known for haste, my lord. He understands the value of caution when handling the unknown.
Caution is a virtue. Hesitation is not.
The Primarch turned to face the observation window as the Obsidian Oath breached atmosphere. The vessel's gravitic wake scattering the thin clouds above Macragg's capital. 1,000 Vox channels flickered alive, transmitting clearance codes, sensor sweeps, and ritual incantations of sanctity.
You can sense it, can't you? That presence aboard the ship. The faint pulse. Even now it lingers in the air like static.
I do. It is as though the warp itself holds its breath.
I have seen warp relics, sorcerous blights, and daemon engines disguised as miracles. Yet this draws me. It calls like memory.
He straightened abruptly, his command presence filling the chamber once more.
Prepare the Sanctum of Audience instead. Have the Inquisitor brought to me upon docking. I want this praxis under direct ultramarine escort. No delays, no detours, no chamber deliberations. I will not have bureaucratic ceremony smother this truth.
At once, my lord. Captain Althanes will be notified.
As Tigurius departed, Gilliman stood alone again, his gaze tracing the contrails of the Obsidian Oath descending through the crag's calm blue sky. For a fleeting instant, the faint shimmer of gold glimmered in the cloud's edge, vanishing as soon as it appeared. Gilliman's jaw set. His voice was low, resolute.
This is deception. I will see it ended. But if it is real, then everything I've believed since my return must change.
Chapter 6. The Obsidian Oath descended into the primary hangar of Fortress Hera, engines roaring like caged storms before settling into solemn silence. The docking bay's vast interior was lined with banners of Ultramar and the Emperor, the air heavy with incense and the presence of duty incarnate. When the boarding ramp lowered, Praxis emerged first, followed by Inquisitor Varen. And for a moment, the entire hangar seemed to forget how to breathe. He was unlike any Astartes the fortress had seen. His armor, bare, battle-worn in ceramite, almost shimmering with ethereal violet hues, carried the haunting mark of the warp, yet none of its corruption. His helm hung at his side, his face bearing the stoic calm of one who had faced the abyss and returned cleansed by will alone. Draped across its shoulders lay a scarf of woven gold, faintly radiant with the unmistakable warmth of the Emperor's light. Some bowed their heads instinctively, unsure whether in reverence or fear. Others formed the aquila across their chests, as if prayer might help them comprehend what they witnessed. Praxis did not meet their eyes. His every step upon Macragge's sacred soil was measured, deliberate. He walked not with pride, but with profound humility, aware that each motion was being judged by eyes both mortal and divine. As they advanced, Captain Althanes of the Ultramarines met them at the foot of the marble steps leading deeper into the fortress. His armor gleamed, pleasant, the blue and gold of Ultramar shining with purity untainted by Wars the Gay.
Inquisitor Varen, Lord Guilliman awaits. He has ordered the subject to be escorted to the Sanctum of Audience immediately.
He will comply. He understands the gravity of this moment.
To stand upon Macragge, to be summoned by the Lord of Ultramar himself. This is an honor far beyond my worth. I will not waste it.
Even Althanes paused at that, the humility in Praxis' tone at odds with the violent lineage his gene seed carried. The group began their procession through the fortress halls. The scar's light danced around Largle and steel, flickering in rhythm with the lumens along the corridor. The air around Praxis was paradoxal, heavy with power, yet softened by a serenity none could explain. The further they walked, the greater the unease among the escorting soldiers. Veterans who had fought the ruinous powers felt the echo of the warp's touch upon him. But instead of corruption, they sensed control, refinement. The same darkness that had broken worlds now moved in silence beneath a mortal's restraint. They passed beneath towering effigies of Guilliman, his brothers, and the Emperor. The carved marble faces watching with judgment and curiosity alike. Praxis slowed briefly before one such statue, the Emperor's likeness wreathed in eternal light. For a brief moment, the light from his scarf seemed to brighten, resonating faintly with the golden radiance above. Soon they reached the massive gates to the Sanctum of Audience, where Lord Guilliman awaited. The chamber beyond was legendary. Few mortals had ever seen it, and fewer still had entered it alive. Praxis took a deep breath, steeling himself. Despite the countless battles he had faced, none felt so heavy as this moment. The gates opened with a resonant groan of machinery and sanctified seals breaking the air. Light flooded from within, gilded and blinding. For a heartbeat, even Praxis hesitated, a fallen sun walking into the light of the Emperor's chosen. And then he stepped forward, ready to face whatever judgment awaited him. The Sanctum of Audience was still as stone. Marble and adamantium gleamed under the azure banners of Ultramar. the air faintly resonating with the thrum of the Primarch's armor. Roboute Guilliman stood before the towering murals of his father's triumphs, his expression fixed and unreadable. His mind, however, raised with restrained disbelief.
A World Eater, bearing a relic that resonates with Father's own essence. Such impossibility mocks reason itself.
The great doors opened. Light spilled across the chamber's floor as Inquisitor Varen led Praxis into the hall. The golden scarf around his neck caught the hall's light, its fabric glimmering as if alive. Guilliman's gaze followed every detail. The guide of the warrior, the discipline in his stance, the absence of madness in his eyes.
He carries himself like an Astartes. Not a berserker. Not a monster.
Praxis knelt at the base of the dais. Head bowed low, his voice came calm, reverent, and heavy with the gravity of his presence.
My Lord Guilliman, I am honored beyond measure to stand before one of his true sons.
Rise. I have read your report. I have heard of you Graxon Prime, the Tyrannid fleet, and the relic. I would hear the truth from your lips.
Praxis rose slowly, his gaze steady. He knew what he had to do. From the folds of the scarf, he drew forth the golden feather, as if asking it to show itself. Its light brightened at once, soft but pure, its radiance filling the hall with a warmth none present had felt in long ages. Even Guilliman's eyes widened faintly.
This is the truth that found me within the deepest abyss.
The Primarch said nothing, though the faintest flicker of awe crossed his face.
I was lost, body and soul, buried within the endless trenches of the warp. I should have perished, or worse. Yet there, I was found.
Found? By what?
A being, one who should have been of the warp's corruption, and yet, she was not. She found my remains, and through means I still cannot fathom, she restored me, cleansed me. I thought it deception, and I'd made ready to strike her down. But she offered this feather, claiming it was proof of her allegiance.
The Primarch's eyes narrowed.
Allegiance. Allegiance to whom?
To the Emperor.
The light from the feather pulsed once, calm, golden, and unwavering. The shadows along the chamber walls retreated as if in reverence.
I did not believe her. I could not. But the light did not lie. It burned the warp around me and I was whole again. It was then, within the quiet of the light, that I beheld him.
You claim to have seen the Emperor.
Not as a man, but as purpose itself. He gave no command, only truth. A second chance. For me, and perhaps for others lost as I was. I have followed that command ever since. I understand there have been instances throughout Imperial history and record of traitors serving penance to stand once again within his light. But this was different.
The Primarch was silent. The logic in his mind howled against this. Every protocol, every known law of psychic resonance and warp phenomena. But the aura around that relic was not false. He could feel it as keenly as breath. Then Praxis extended the feather toward him, the light gleaming brighter still.
My lord, I offer it to you. If my words are false, you will know. If they are true, then perhaps he still speaks.
Varen took an involuntary step back. Even the air felt charged, like an instant before lightning strikes. Guilliman hesitated only a moment before reaching out, his armored fingers brushing the feather. The instant contact was made, the light flared. For a single heartbeat, Guilliman saw not an image, but a presence. A vast and immeasurable warmth that defied the cold vacuum of eternity. His father's essence, distant yet undeniably there. The sensation of purpose renewed, of the Imperium's struggle seen through divine eyes. Then it was gone. Gilliman's hand lingered in the air after the relic's light dimmed, the lingering warmth of the Emperor's presence fading like a dream. The chamber remained deathly still, even the air refusing to stir. Praxis, still kneeling, raised his head slightly.
My lord, before your judgment is passed, there is something you must know. I wish not to keep any truths from you.
Gilliman's gaze sharpened.
Very well. Speak.
As we are all very much aware, the warp is not without horror. But in its depths, I found something that defies it. A sanctum, hidden, reflected within the immaterial sea. It is a place where light refuses to die. We call it the Sanctum of Refraction.
A sanctuary. Within the warp. You expect me to believe such a thing exists?
It does, Lord Guilliman. Within its walls drove others like me. Once lost, now cleansed. Former sons of Legion stand by corruption. Night Lords who no longer revel in fear. Thousand sons who seek only to study without heresy. Warriors who remember their oaths to humanity and wish only to serve again.
Even Inquisitor Varen true-breathed sharply at such blasphemous implication. But Praxis's tone never wavered.
I will not plead for their acceptance, only that you know of them. Should any among them show even a flicker of heresy, I will not hesitate to end them myself. If I fall to corruption again, I ask that I be executed immediately, and request that the sanctum be purged from existence.
The silence that followed was heavier than any weapon. Gilliman studied him long and hard, the weight of millennia pressing behind his eyes. Every instinct demanded he call for containment, for immediate execution, for a purge of whatever ghost haunt this warrior spoke of. But Praxis's words had no deceit. The Primarch could feel it, an unwavering certainty that this Astartes had found redemption not through pride, but through suffering and truth. Finally, Gilliman spoke, voice calm, but edged with authority.
Would you offer me passage to this sanctum?
If you wish it, my lord, you would be welcome as no other. But I do not expect it. You already see the truth of my words.
The Primarch's silence was answer enough. He turned his gaze to the feather once more, then back to Praxis.
You speak as one reborn. And perhaps that is what you are.
Then, my lord, I have but one request. If such audacity is permitted.
You have spoken nothing but honest words, and shared interesting information with me without detail sparsity. I will allow a request. Speak it.
Allow the creation of a new chapter. A brotherhood of those redeemed. A light to guide those lost to darkness. Let us prove that faith and discipline can reclaim what corruption sought to destroy. Let us serve humanity as the Emperor intended.
Varen stiffened, ready to protest, but Gilliman raised a hand. His gaze remained fixed on Praxis.
You would gather the lost.
I would gather the willing. Those who had their senses returned to them, and turned from the ruinous powers, seeking only to serve. Those who wish to repent for their prior foolishness. They will kneel to the Emperor's truth, not to their pride, nor to their past. I no longer see myself above the soldiers I fought beside. Not after knowing that a supposed angel of the Emperor fell to madness. It made me realize that I was not as invincible as I once believed. I felt human. The Cadians stood firm while death devoured the sky. They bled as I did. They fought as I did. If they are not beneath me, then no man or woman is. We all serve as mortals in his shadow.
Gilliman's expression remained impassive, but the faintest trace of something warmer, recognition, perhaps even respect, passed over his features.
You understand humility and the weight of redemption. Qualities rare even among my sons.
It is why I wish to aid others, the same as the Emperor aided me, my lord. As the Emperor willed me to.
The Primarch turned away, hands clasped behind his back. He stood before the great mural of the Emperor's ascension, stone eyes aglow with reflected light.
You ask much, Praxis of the Lost Legion. And yet, perhaps the Imperium itself has forgotten how to forgive. I will consider your request.
My deepest gratitude. That is all I ask.
You will remain under my observation. Your sanctum will remain untouched, for now. Should your words prove true, then perhaps your chapter will stand as proof that even the darkest soul may find light again.
As Praxis turned to leave, the golden feather shimmered faintly, as if acknowledging the exchange. The light pulsed once, as Guilliman rested it upon his desk. Not long after, Rabuk Guilliman stood before the vast observation arc that overlooked the serene plains of Macragge. The skies were calm, an illusion of peace that never lasted long in his Imperium. Yet his thoughts lingered not on the stars, nor on strategy, but upon the one anomaly that defied both. Praxis. The name alone defied categorization. The details played over and over again in his head. A world eater reborn without madness, bearing a relic that radiated the unmistakable pulse of the Emperor's light. Guilliman had faced psychers, prophets, saints, and liars by the thousand. But the Space Marine he had met that day bore a conviction that no falsehood could imitate. Upon his desk rested the place where the golden feather once lay. Its faint outline remained burned into the marble, the stone slightly warm to the touch. Only moments after Praxis's departure, the relic had stirred, its light intensifying as if stirred by the breath of creation itself. Then, with a single flare of golden radiance, it vanished, fading into motes of light that trailed towards the heavens. Guilliman had watched it depart, saying nothing, for even he, the avenging sun, had felt something as it left. Not abandonment, but regret.
I see. You return to him, don't you? My father's will follows where it is needed most.
The chamber's light flickered as the dying echo of the feather's glow passed over the carved visages of the Primarchs lining the hall. Each statue seemed momentarily alive in the reflection. Angron's twisted form caught in the light that almost looked merciful.
Angron's blood runs through him, and yet he acts with reason, with mercy. Is that what you meant for us, Father?
He looked again to the faint scorch on the marble, fingers tracing the warmth that still lingered.
A miracle, or a manipulation. But even if it were the latter, it has given humanity something they may have not known in millennia. Hope. A chance.
The sound of footsteps interrupted his thoughts. A Vox Adept appeared at the threshold, bowing low.
My lord, the Obsidian Oath has departed orbit. The Inquisitor reports the subject is en route to an undisclosed facility.
Acknowledged. Let him go. Praxis will not run from scrutiny. He knows what must be proven.
And the relic, my lord?
It follows him. That is answer enough.
The Adept bowed and left, leaving the Primarch once again to his solitude. Guilliman stood for a time, watching the emptiness beyond Macragge's sky, until at last he spoke to the quiet air.
If this is truly my father's hand at work, then I pray I am wise enough not to close it in fear.
And for just a moment, faintly reflected in the viewport glass, there shimmered a wisp of golden light, fading swiftly, yet leaving behind a sense of purpose. Chapter 7. The rift sealed behind him with a resonant hum, leaving the sanctum of refraction steeped once more in its ethereal stillness. Praxis stood before the gathered reformed, their gazes locked on him as silence lingered like a held breath. From among them stepped Xerxes, his form adorned in threads of gold and cerulean, cleansed sigils, faintly glowing upon his mantle. The faint distortion of his presence shimmered, as it always did, restrained, but unmistakable.
You have returned, Brother Praxis. I trust the warp did not take what the Emperor restored.
No, brother. Emperor's light held true. Lord Gilliman heard me.
The reaction across the chamber was subdued, a restrained wave of emotion flickering through the gathered reformed. Hope, quiet and uncertain, yet present.
That is good. And did he believe?
He saw the feather. He felt its light. I believe it stirred something within him, but he made no decree. His judgment waits.
Xerxes' expression hardened with measured realism.
Then the Imperium remains cautious. And rightly so. You have achieved much, Praxis. You walk among the sons of Gilliman and lived. You carried the feather into the heart of the Imperium and were not struck down. That alone is no small victory.
A victory, perhaps, but a fragile one. Gilliman's acceptance is not yet certain. The Inquisition watches, and I fear any misstep could undo what we've gained.
Then we wait. Patience is the only ally we have. Gilliman will weigh your words, and the feather will speak for itself in time. Until then, we move for nothing. Not until he calls.
A faint, approving hum resonated from the chamber's core prism, its light pulsing, once as though echoing the oath itself. Xerxes regarded Praxis for a long moment before speaking, his tone low, but steady.
You have carried the feather well, brother. Let us hope that when next it shines, it does so under the Emperor's gaze, and not his judgment.
The brief celebration within the Sanctum of Refraction has subsided into quiet murmurs and the low hum of warp light braziers. Praxis engaged the last of the firm handshakes and gauntlet pats before excusing himself to the barracks. Around him, the Reformed continued their routines. Warriors once bound to madness and ruined, now tempered in discipline and purpose. He sat for a time, watching as Brother Xerxes conducted another of his training rituals. Cleansed demons, their essence stripped of malice and bound in service, emerged from shimmering circles of controlled warp fire. They lunged and roared, their strikes precise, their movements echoing the fury of their corrupted kin. Each clash of blade and claw was a lesson, each death a rehearsal of their true purpose. When the daemons fell, their essence dissipated harmlessly, drawn back to Xerxes' hand, so that the cycle could continue anew. Praxis observed silently, the faintest smile hidden beneath his calm exterior. This was order. This was redemption. Even if his success upon Eugraxin Prime was but a small spark, it was one that could ignite hope across eternity. Then, the warmth came. It began as a subtle pulse, a thrum within the heart of his being, familiar, radiant, and impossibly distant all at once. His gaze shifted towards the deeper chambers of the Sanctum. From beyond the Hall of Training, through the corridors lined with Imperial iconography in mirrored glass, lay the library, the soul of their refuge. He rose slowly, feeling the warmth intensify with each step. The others were too focused on their sparring to notice, though Xerxes' avian eyes flicked briefly in Praxis' direction, sensing a familiar energy. The library's doors parted as he approached, its interior alive with gentle, shifting light. Shelves of strange alloy and tempered stone held tomes of every kind. The codices of the Reformed, the treatises of Laraxi, the writings of Xerxes himself, scrolls of the Thousand Suns incantations sat beside imperial tactical doctrines. Their contradictions somehow harmonized within these walls. As Praxis entered, the warmth enveloped him fully. It was not just heat, it was presence. The air shimmered faintly, and the faint echo of something divine brushed against his mind. The golden feather, though still woven within Hadrian's scarf, pulsed with light. It whispered without words, calling him deeper, He stepped between the rows of sacred texts, his hand brushing against runic bindings and purity seals alike. The warmth guided him, leading him toward the heart of the library, to a small dais where no book rested. Only a single stone pedestal carved with runes of both imperial and ancient warp origin. The light of the feather shone brighter still. Praxis knelt before it, resting one gauntleted hand upon the pedestal surface. He could feel the warp ripple around him, not in corruption, but in resonance. The message had not ended with Guilliman. The Emperor's will was still moving. Then, the golden feather stirred. It slid gently from the weave of Praxis's scarf, its radiant glow softening the cold gleam of the library's warp-lit shelves. The air grew warm, not with fire, but with the hush of something sacred. The relic drifted downward, settling upon the pedestal like a sigh of light. Praxis hesitated. His gaze darted across the silent hall. None had followed him. None bore witness to the miracle unfolding. So he reached out, uncertain, yet compelled. As his gauntleted hand met the feather's growing warmth, his vision shattered into brilliance. Light consumed all. Sound, substance, thought. Everything dissolved into radiance. When the blinding tide subsided, he stood once more before the impossible. The Golden Throne. The Emperor of Mankind, vast and eternal, sat upon his seat of ancient fire. His radiance no longer seared Praxis's soul as it once had. Instead, it pulsed with the quiet gravity of comprehension. The warp walker's knees struck the ground, almost instinctively.
My lord.
But his words halted. Something in the air, in the faint shift of the Emperor's expression, restrained him. It was a grimace, not of anger, but of sorrow. It was the same expression Praxis himself had worn when Captain Hadrian called him Lord on Eugraxton Prime. Slowly, Praxis rose to his feet, the gesture hesitant, uncertain. The Emperor's voice came like the weight of stars.
And so your faith questions itself. I am pleased that your mission was fulfilled, and that my son, Guilliman, still keeps his trust in me.
Yes. It would seem that now we wait for his judgment. For what will become of the Reformed.
The Emperor nodded once, his gaze distant, ageless. Silence lingered between them, heavy, but not empty. He carried unspoken truths, the gravity of thoughts too vast for mortal comprehension. Yet something in that silence chilled Praxis. The radiance around the Emperor no longer felt inviting. His faith, for the first time since his rebirth, felt unwelcome. He could not ignore it.
Does something trouble you, Emperor?
For a moment, nothing. Then, emotion. A slow, subtle shift upon that divine face. Regret. Not wrath. Not disappointment. Human regret.
Must I truly answer what you already feel within, Praxis? You sense it as well. The disapproval of being seen as something you never wished to be. You know that feeling better than most.
The words struck deep. Praxis's faith wavered, confusion and awe entwining like serpents within his chest. To question the God Emperor was heresy beyond reckoning. Yet the Emperor himself spoke of disapproval toward his own worship.
I humbly request that you elaborate.
The Emperor leaned slightly upon the throne, the gold light dimming to a gentle glow.
Understand this, Praxis. I never sought divinity. I did not want the faith of man in my being, nor in my power. I wished only for their faith in their own potential, in what mankind could become. I sought not to be worshipped, but to elevate, to guide my species to stand beside me, not beneath me. That was my dream. That was the Imperium's true design.
The chamber trembled with the weight of those words. The fire of the throne flickered, its light reflecting across Praxis's armor like shattered suns. Everything he had once believed, every hymn, every prayer whispered into the dark, unraveled before him.
I wanted mankind to thrive beyond any species to ever exist. To prosper with me, not as servants, but as equals. I thought my sons, my armies, my Imperium would ensure that ascent. But I was a fool. Power invites worship. Worship breeds blindness. I am no god, Praxis. I am a man.
The words resounded through the infinite expanse. Praxis could not breathe. His faith did not shatter. It transformed. No longer built upon worship, but upon understanding. He saw at last that the Emperor, not as an unreachable deity, but as the greatest of men. A being who bore the eternal burden of his species' hopes and failures alike. Praxis knelt once more before the radiant figure upon the throne, not in worship, but in reverence. His posture spoke not of supplication, but of understanding, of respect freely given, not demanded. The Emperor's gaze softened, the immeasurable weight of divinity lessened, if only by a fraction. When Praxis rose, his voice carried both awe and sorrow.
Your sacrifice to aid our people, Emperor. How could we possibly repay such an unfathomable deed? Millennia of protection against the ruinous powers, unending struggle to defend us despite the foul dogma that shackles our Imperium. Why reveal this revelation to me?
The Emperor regarded him in silence for a long, eternal moment before answering. His voice was as old as the stars, and yet weary with the wisdom of countless centuries.
Any one of humanity's children would have done the same. To see our people prosper, to raise them beyond the reach of the warp's cruelty. That is beyond repayment. To watch mankind destroyed would be inconceivable, even to you. That belief alone, the refusal to surrender our species to despair, is what makes humanity worth to stand beside me, not beneath. To fight in my name is understandable, Praxis. But to shackle faith into worship, to turn reverence into blind zealotry, unacceptable. I cannot bear it any longer. That is why I pass this truth to you. My power is immense, yes, but it is not what defines me. Do not let it blind you to what I am.
The Emperor's gaze met his, unflinching, and his next words resounded like a pulse through the golden expanse.
We are brothers. Do not let doctrine or transparent hierarchy convince you otherwise.
To be called brother by the Emperor of mankind was a weight that transcended honor. It was absolution. Yet Praxis refused to make it his triumph. He saw instead the burden behind those words, and what they meant for every soul that still fought beneath the Imperium's broken banners.
This ideal will take time to settle, Emperor. But I will not forget your sacrifice, nor will mankind. I will bear this truth as you willed it. Rank and hierarchy do not define us. Unity, compassion, and the strength to rise from our failures. That will guide us to what you once envisioned.
The Emperor inclined his head, a gesture of solemn agreement. The brilliance around him dimmed slightly, as though his burden lightened for the briefest moment. Perhaps within this falling galaxy, this reformed son of war could carry forth what the Emperor had long desired, but could no longer proclaim. That mankind must stand together, not in worship, but in brotherhood. The Emperor would raise his hand in newfound vigor, flaring with golden light despite his weary and weakening state. A determination not seen in ages from his truth finally being shared, to be shared to mankind.
Go, Brother Praxis. Ensure the creation of a chapter that shows our people that my mercy is vast for those who seek to protect mankind, and that together, united, we are stronger than any foe.
The war will know fear, a fear never before seen. The fear that mankind will obliterate its enemies together as one unstoppable power.
Praxis would nod as the Emperor would fade into the void, not as a god vanishing into divine act, but a man continuing his fight for humanity. Praxis would awaken with his hand still upon the podium, the golden feather hovering back into the scarf before he began to make his way to the doors, leaving the library. Why was he chosen for this task? Perhaps his humility offered the Emperor a chance to reveal his truth. That mankind, including him, are one. Whatever the reason, the stage was set. The next obstacle was revealing this truth to his allies without being seen as insane. The faint light of the sanctum's corridors hummed against the still air, fractured through the glass veins of the walls. Praxis walked slowly, the warmth of the golden feather's departure still pulsing faintly beneath his armor. He could not steal his thoughts. A shadow shifted ahead, not of threat, but of presence. Xerxes, the reformed Lord of Change, stepped into the light, his gaze sharp, yet calm. The gilded runes across his form glimmering faintly as if responding to Praxis's aura.
I saw you leave the barracks, brother. You tread as one burdened. Has something transpired?
Praxis halted. He opened his mouth, but no words came. The Emperor's revelation still thundered within him, too vast for speech. Xerxes' eyes narrowed slightly, censoring the lingering resonance that emanated from the Space Marine's form.
A feather. Speaks again, does it not? You carry the Emperor's light upon you. Faint, but unmistakable. Tell me, brother, did you see him once more?
Praxis struggled for composure, his voice low, uncertain.
Brother Xerxes, do you believe that mankind has lost its way? Perhaps strayed from the Emperor's truth?
The question drew a pause from the sorcerer. The two began to walk slowly down the corridor toward the library, their steps echoing between crystalline walls.
That question pierces the heart of faith itself. Considering the Imperium's cruelties, its endless sacrifices, I would say mankind has only deepened its devotion to his light.
And yet, I fear that mankind misunderstands the ground from which that faith was built.
The words pulled Xerxes to stillness. His many-hued eyes searched Praxis for corruption, but yet he found none.
Elaborate, brother. Would you claim that we worship not a divine being who guides us to salvation?
I did receive another message from the Emperor's relic. The Emperor does not demand worship or zealotry. What he desires, what he entrusted to me, is unity, compassion, that mankind may rise beside him, not bow beneath him.
Xerxes blinked slowly, his expression unreadable, but the air around him shimmered with restrained energy.
I can sense the truth in your essence. You do not speak in heresy, but in remembrance, a truth long buried. This revelation, it came from him himself.
Yes, the Emperor does not see himself as a god. He never did. He sought only to guide humanity to stand as he does. Strong, undivided, beyond superstition. I saw it in his eyes, brother. The sorrow that we turned him into something he never wished to be.
By the throne. Then our worship, our prayers, they are chains of misunderstanding. The Emperor seeks not devotion, but kinship. He would have us fight with him, not for him.
I know this revelation cuts deep. It does for me as well. But think, brother, would a god bleed for his creation? Would he suffer millennia of torment, only to protect the unworthy? No. Only a man would endure such pain for his kind.
The silence that followed was almost holy. Xerxes bowed his head slightly, a gesture rare for the ancient being.
Perhaps this is what the Emperor meant for us to rediscover. That faith without understanding is a shackle, and humility, the key to his vision.
Praxis turned toward the barracks, his form half lit by the sanctum's ethereal glow.
Then let this be the truth we rebuild ourselves upon, brother. A truth of men, not gods.
He walked on, the golden light faint upon his scarf once more. Xerxes remained where he stood, the implications of the revelation echoing through his mind like ripples across the warp. For the first time in his long existence, he felt the weight of equality. That even the Emperor's will could be shared, not simply obeyed. Chapter 8. Praxis made his way down the long hall towards the barracks, his thoughts still burdened with the words of the Emperor. The golden truth that had been shown to him burned steady in his mind, a flame both humbling and heavy. The air shimmered faintly from the sanctum's stabilizing fields, a quiet rhythm that echoed the pulse of the warp far beyond its walls. It was then that a figure approached, armor of crimson, the subtle movements of Suro limbs marking his every step. The mechanical murmur of calibration and purpose followed him.
Greetings, Brother Praxis.
Brother Leonidas, what brings the Honor Tech Marine of the Sanctum to me?
Leonidas fell into stride beside him, his tone patient but direct.
Forgive my interruption, brother, but your armor's machine spirit requires tending. My scans following your return indicated irregularities. Faint at first, but persistent. I would see them addressed before they worsen.
Is that so? I am fortunate to have your vigilant eyes upon me, brother. You've safeguarded our war gear better than any Forge World ever could.
They entered the barracks, a wide chamber of cold steel and quiet purpose. The sound of armor plates and training drills echoed faintly from deeper within. Toward the rear stood the Sanctum's forge and armory, where Leonidas kept their systems pure and the Sanctum's technology alive. Praxis seated himself in the great reinforced chair at the room's center as Leonidas began his work. A thick cable extended from the Tech Marine's gauntlet and locked into the armor's rear ports with a solid hiss. The rites of diagnostic activation filled the air, a faint red glow washing over the polished metal as Leonidas began his scan.
Brother Praxis, what was it like? Real space, I mean. After all this time.
Praxis leaned back slightly, letting the data flow through him.
Strange. To fall from the storms of the warp into silence. I had forgotten the feeling of stillness, of stable ground. It was invigorating.
I could only imagine. The thought of walking beneath two stars again.
Then a pause. A quiet shift of machinery stopped.
Is everything well? A malfunction?
There seems to be an anomaly.
Anomaly? Was the machine spirit tampered during warp transit?
Not within the armor's machine spirit, but within you.
A faint flicker of light danced across the Tech Marine's visor as the readings stabilized.
What is this? A physical irregularity? No. Something beyond biological or mechanical measure.
Could warp corruption have lingered beyond Laraxi's purification?
No, this is not corruption. It holds no taint. But it is unlike anything I've seen before.
He leaned in again, running deeper scans through the armor's internal systems, his motions growing slower as his confusion deepened.
No, this is different, brother. Entirely different.
Leonidas' optics dimmed to a focused crimson hue as his mechadendrites withdrew from Praxis' armor ports. The Tech Marine stepped aside briefly, reaching toward the small altar beside his console, a resting place for sacred scripture and recovered codices. Among them lay the tome that Brother Xerxes had entrusted to him mere days prior. Its metal bindings whispered faintly as Leonidas opened it, scanning the age script etched within. After a long pause, he spoke.
Brother Praxis, when Sister Laraxi restored your body, did you feel, perhaps, stronger than before?
Praxis's expression beneath his helm stirred at the memory, the surge of power that had coursed through his limbs, the strange stability that came with it.
Now that it has been brought back to my attention, I did. Are you able to explain the cause?
Leonidas's mechadendrites adjusted around the tome as he flipped several pages, his tone deepening with realization.
By the throne. I believe I may.
Praxis leaned slightly forward, silent and attentive.
It would seem that Sister Laraxi enacted a spell not purely of resurrection, but of revelation. One that she and Brother Xerxes studied for many cycles before she departed to retrieve your remains. This sorcery was intended to go beyond the act of revival. It was designed to bestow something new upon the resurrected. Laraxi revived some of the reformed, but we did not believe she would continue such experiments during the search for fallen brothers.
Bestow a new revelation in sorcery.
Indeed. Brother Xerxes once confided in me that he had spoken with a sorcerer of the Thousand Suns. A traitor, yes, but one willing to barter knowledge for understanding. Their discussion centered around a theory that warp corruption could be inverted, that through calculated ritual, one could channel the raw psychic chaos of the warp into empowerment, transform its destructive essence into physical and psychic fortitude.
Praxis's hand tightened against the arm of the chair. The very notion was heresy in most corners of the Imperium, and yet his own existence challenged such rigid thought.
Yes, warp energy empowerment through exposure, rather than corruption.
And these experiments, they bore no unintended consequences?
Leonidas sighed softly through the box, detaching the final link between their systems.
The accounts I've recovered say otherwise. Dozens of attempts were made upon the corpses of traitor Astartes. All failed. Until you. You returned not only cleansed, but enhanced. Your body, long dead and drifting through the deep warp, must have absorbed that energy. And rather than succumb to corruption, the spell that Sister Laraxi invoked transmuted it, anchored it, within your purified soul.
Praxis rose slowly, the weight of realization pressing against his thoughts. The memory of his battle with the Hive Tyrant flashed through his mind. The rage, the despair, the impossible strength that had carried him through.
My exposure to the warp strengthened me. That should have been my undoing. The corruption should have consumed me.
Leonidas turned away momentarily, adjusting the several linkages of his arm before replying.
My hypothesis, brother, is that Laraxi and Xerxes discovered a way to harmonize their opposing schools of power. The cleansing light and the corruptive abyss. By binding the warp's emotional hunger to the vessel's will. You, in this case, became the test of that theory. They must have focused the warp's fury, its hunger, into a state of emotional resonance. Rage. Defiance. Grief. Transmuting it into strength rather than decay. I cannot prove it entirely, but it aligns with what I see within your readings.
You may explain what occurred upon Hadrian's death. My anger swelled beyond containment, and in my despair I unleashed something else. A surge that staggered the Tyranid swarm itself. I remember that moment vividly, as rage, a defiance of fate, as if the warp itself recoiled from my will.
Leonidas froze, his head turning sharply towards Praxis. His vox emitted a low, mechanical hum before he spoke again, his voice carrying the tone of restrained alarm.
A fear cascade. Brother Praxis, did your psychic outburst strike both enemy and ally alike? An overwhelming backlash of emotional force?
Praxis tilted his head slightly. The title, unfamiliar, his confusion clear.
The Fear Cascade? What are you talking about?
The sound of Leonidas' servo motors filled the air as he gestured for Praxis to follow, his urgency restrained only by discipline.
Come. Our brothers of the Thousand Suns must hear this. Their knowledge of the warp's theory will help us understand what you carry.
Praxis nodded, the unease still simmering in his chest. To think that his strength, his rebirth, was the product of a spell that fed upon the warp's corruption and turned it into vigor rather than decay. He followed the Tech Marine through the dim halls toward the Sanctum's central chamber. The doors parted with a resonant hiss. Within, the reformed Thousand Suns were gathered around hovering tomes and shifting glyphs of light. Their armor shimmered in deep cobalt and burnished gold, colors they had sworn never to abandon, not out of pride, but remembrance. To them, those hues were penance, a constant reminder of the Legion's fall, and of their vow to repay the Emperor's mercy 1,000-fold. Leonidas strode forward, drawing the attention of the sorcerers as the runes faded from the air.
Brothers, forgive my intrusion, but this cannot wait.
The lead among them, a veteran of once mighty Prospero, whose helm bore a single cleansed eye rune, nodded for him to continue. Leonidas wasted no time recounting what he had discovered during his inspection of Praxis' armor. The physical anomaly within his systems, the strange resonance tied to his revived psychology. The Thousand Suns listened in silence, their green eyelids glowing faintly as they processed each word. When he finished, the lead sorcerer exchanged a glance with his brethren before addressing Praxis directly.
Brother Leonidas speaks of something beyond simple purity or survival. What Sister Laraxi accomplished through a resurrection incantation was thought impossible. A union of warp exposure and sanctified will. You, Brother Praxis, are living proof that her study succeeded.
Another spoke, his voice calmer, aged with quiet reverence.
For centuries, we and Brother Xerxes theorized the possibility of channeling the warp's corruption into controlled vitality, rather than destruction. To allow its hunger to empower the vessel that denies it. Dozens of our experiments failed. Until you.
Then it was not her spell alone that sustained me.
No. It was your will. The core of what Laraxi's magic could not fabricate. She gave you a purified channel, but you determined how that power would manifest.
Leonidas folded his arms, turning his mechanical gaze to Praxis.
And that manifestation, brother, may also explain what occurred upon the battlefield.
At that, the room's tension deepened. One of the Thousand Suns stepped forward, his voice low.
The Fear Cascade.
You know of it.
We theorized it. A psychic backlash born from pure emotion. Not the warp's rage, but your defiance. When fear, despair, and resolve collide within the mind of a psyker strong enough to endure it, the warp recoils. The energy turns upon itself. We called it the Fear Cascade because it feeds on the enemy's terror, and the user's defiance while purging corruption from them.
We had no proof it could exist, until you stood against a Tyranid swarm. Once we studied the warp resonance left by the wake of the Cascade, we surmised you may have activated it. We were not certain. Not until now.
Praxis remained silent for a long moment, his memory of that battle flickering in his thoughts. The fury, the anguish, the blinding psychic pulse that crushed the enemy in waves.
So, Laraxi's spell gave me strength, and my defiance gave it purpose.
The Thousand Suns bowed their heads in agreement.
You have done more than survive, Brother Praxis. You have validated centuries of theory. The Fear Cascade lives, not as a weapon or curse, but as proof that the warp itself can be forced to serve mankind's will.
The words weighed heavy, but in them, Praxis found a grim understanding. What he had become was not miracle, nor accident. It was the convergence of humanity's greatest strengths. Will, unity, and defiance against corruption itself. Whatever Laraxi and Xerxes had created in him, it was no longer a mere experiment. It was evolution. It was the next step to beating chaos. Within the quiet heart of the Sanctum, the reformed Thousand Suns led Praxis further into the corridors toward the Chamber of Truth. A space of steady humming light where psychic wards layered over one another in a spiraling pattern of runes and incantations. The air shivered faintly with residual power as the lead sorcerer gestured toward the center dais.
Please, Brother Praxis, stand within the circle. We wish to confirm what we suspect.
Praxis complied, his posture disciplined, his expression composed beneath his bared helm. Threads of harmless psychic resonance brushed against his mind as the sorcerers began their examination. No evasive probing, merely observation. The air pulsed once, faintly.
Interesting. You do not possess significant psychic potential, yet you unleash the fear cascade.
Could it possibly manifest through non-psychic users and be replicated?
The question drew thoughtful murmurs from the reformed sorcerers as one flipped through a hovering scripture, its runes glowing softly in the air.
A possibility. Perhaps the emotional manifestation converts the psychic potency through the warp's inclusion. If so, it could indeed be replicated by any individual who experiences such emotions, while warp energy flows within or around them.
Praxis nodded slowly, considering the theory.
Would that mean all of us could harness this phenomenon? But what of the warp's corruption? Would it not devour the user?
The Thousand Suns exchanged knowing glances, conferring quietly. Another sorcerer, his hand etched with golden runes of penance, spoke with assurance.
The exposure would be momentary, fleeting. It would not be enough to allow the warp to take hold, provided control is maintained. With mastery, perhaps even the burst of that energy could be wielded for greater strength.
The group fell into studied silence, their minds turning over possibilities as they recorded their findings. What had once been abstract theory, the fear cascade, had now been proven through Praxis's battle against the Tyranid fleet. As the discussions deepened and scripture floated among them, the air within the chamber shifted. Xerxes entered, his towering form framed by the shifting light of the sanctum's crystalline architecture. The reformed Lord of Change's gaze swept across the gathered sorcerers, his expression a mix of curiosity and suspicion.
Greetings, brothers. I see Praxis is here. What is it you're doing?
The late sorcerer turned, bowing his head slightly.
Brother Xerxes, we have been studying the cause behind Brother Praxis' victory. The phenomenon known as the fear cascade. Its existence has been confirmed. What was once theory has now been proven.
At this, Xerxes' gaze turned to Praxis, his golden eyes shimmering with 1,000 unspoken calculations. He had already been turning over the truths Praxis had shared with him. The Emperor's humanity, his wish for unity rather than worship. And now this revelation stood before him. A power born from defiance, emotion, and will. Not devotion or zealotry.
Then it would seem that the Emperor's truth and this phenomenon share the same essence. Power not born from worship, but from the soul's refusal to yield.
The chamber fell quiet again, save for the hum of psychic wards and the faint flicker of golden light from the scarf at Praxis' arm. Xerxes would give a glance to Praxis, a non-verbal indication to gather his brothers for the truth in this very chamber. The Chamber of Truth shimmered with faint warp light, its runes thrumming in quiet harmony as the gathered Astartes of countless once-damned legions stood together. The reformed Thousand Suns, their cerulean and gold plate gleaming dimly beneath sanctum lighting, turned their eyes towards Xerxes as his final words echoed through the chamber. Night Lords, Alpha Legion, and even Death Guard.
You speak of power not born from worship. What did you mean by that, Brother Xerxes?
The former Lord of Change raised his gaze, his form tall and still, his expression a calm storm of truth and recollection.
It is not mine to claim. Revelation belongs to Brother Praxis. Before he came to you, he revealed to me a truth I at first deemed the highest heresy, yet one that bears the unmistakable light of the Emperor himself.
The chamber stilled, even among these reformed sons, who had seen the veil between truth and madness torn and rewoven. The notion of a new message from the Emperor bordered on the unthinkable.
Hear me well, brothers. Praxis received a vision, a direct communion through the Emperor's own light. And what he spoke to me was this. The Emperor does not seek worship. He does not desire divinity. He wishes for kinship.
The murmurs fell away like dust before a storm.
He never meant for mankind to kneel. He sought to raise humanity beside him, to evolve with him. He's not a god who demands servitude, but a man who wished to see us become more than we are. To take up his burden, not as supplicants, but as brothers.
Praxis stepped forward beside him, his armor's faint hum filling the pause that followed. His words came slowly, but with conviction that even the warp's whispers could not taint.
I know how this must sound. Millennia have taught us to call him divine, to see him as the light above all lights. But what if his light was never meant to blind, only to guide? The Emperor does not want our worship. He wants our will. He does not need faith from afar. He seeks our unity beside him. He wishes us to see humanity as he does, as a single, unbreakable being, stronger when it stands as one.
The reformed Astartes, Thousand Sons, Word-bearers, Alpha Legionaries, and others cast out by their own kind, listened in silence. Some averted their eyes, struggling with the fracture of millennia-old belief. Others clenched their fists, the truth already burning with them, like revelation rediscovered. One of the Thousand Sons, a scholar of both ruin and redemption, finally spoke, his voice steady, but weighted.
Such reasoning would be condemned as heresy. And yet, I find no fault in its logic. We have seen the gods, seen what they truly are. They use us, toy with us, discard us. Perhaps the Emperor sought something different. Not to rule as one of them, but to show us how to stand without them.
Leonidas, ever silent, gave a mechanical nod, his augmetic optics glimmering in the light.
It aligns with what we have witnessed. He never wanted deification. Only devotion to the cause of mankind's survival and ascension.
Another word-bearer, his armor crimson and etched with scars of old repentance, gripped his staff tightly.
But then what are we, if not his followers?
Praxis met his gaze.
Not followers, brother. Builders. The Emperor sought to unite mankind through strength, compassion, and will. We, who were broken and cast aside, now have the chance to rebuild what the Imperium forgot. To honor his vision as it was meant to be.
And as more of the reformed kin gathered at the doorway, drawn by the resonance of this awakening, a single voice rose.
For the Emperor.
It was not the old cry of devotion. It was something pure, close to kinship, to duty, to unity.
For the Emperor!
Another answered.
For the Emperor!
And another. The chamber trembled with the sound of dozens of voices, once divided by betrayal and war, now united, not in worship, but in shared resolve. The air itself seemed to hum with their newfound purpose, a foundation, not of creed or cult, but of truth. And from this revelation, beneath the fractured light of the warp-touch sanctum, the first stones of a new brotherhood were laid. Not a legion, not a cult, but a chapter yet to be born, and an ideal that would one day bear its name: the Warp Walkers. Hey, if you made it to the end, I just wanted to say thank you. I apologize for the wait on this one. There are 2 Warp Walker Origins books, and that was only part 1. We've got quite the story to venture through, so strap in and stay tuned. Again, thank you so much for watching. Be well, brothers and sisters. Be greater.